I'm Andreas Weisenborn. I manage research and advocacy here for Destinations International. And there's really only two things you have to know about me. I try to mean what I say and say what I mean. And I love the color orange. So, with that out of the way, I'm not a big fan of bearing the lead. What are we actually announcing today? The first is a follow-up, a sequel to a seminal research project that we started in 2010 that we're releasing today, or every couple leap years, if you like to put it that way. In addition to not only the research study itself, we're releasing it with 10 destination case studies that encompass it, as well as partnering with Tourism Economics, Longwoods International, Clarity of Place, and M&G United Next Factor to bring this research to life as part of us. So we're very much like the MCU here at Destinations International to make this all work and bring it home. The other, and this is really for takeaways for all of you, is that when you leave today, you understand that the work that you do is a catalyst for community vitality. And we'll get into what that means. But also, today, we have definitively answered, proof positive, that the work that you do is essential, it is necessary, and it is very important. You don't believe me? Let's Clark Kent this. Okay. And a small ad break here. Everything that you see on the screen today is only made possible because of the Destinations International Foundation. Without them and their leadership, I would not be on the stage, nor would any of this research. So when the time comes and you get a chance to invest, please consider us. Okay. Let's back up a little bit about the decade in the making here. So in 2014, we partnered with Tourism Economics to release, at that time, a landmark study called Destination Promotion, an Engine of Economic Development. And in it, it provides us unilaterally the answer that what we do, destination promotion, is also economic development. But more importantly, it gave us the answer that what we do, the logical argument for what we exist. And you've probably used these arguments time and time again, right? Tourism is jobs. Tourism is economic commerce and what that has done. And that has carried us well through the past decade. It's important to distinguish that after World War II, GDP was invented as a way to share the work and the worth of countries in a very succinct and easy to understand way as part of it. And we have carried through that as part of it. So you're asking yourself then, if that was such a breakthrough study and gave us this argument for why we exist, the logical argument financial markets, or what you call financial insecurity. Take where we stand today exactly, right? We have somehow staved off a recession, right? Tried to push back inflation. The job market is actually doing better than we ever expected it to. But ask anyone off the street, and what are they going to tell you? They don't feel good about the economy. We have this general distrust or distaste in believing this. And that stems from this. We don't generally trust institutions. Now, albeit sometimes more an American problem, right? We don't seem to want to trust the government, the financial institutions, banking, security, and safety. And underneath the tone of all of that is what we call this general misinformation age, right? You can go back to Cambridge Analytica, but just think about the biggest story of 2023. We were trying to debate, was the Pope wearing a puffy coat or not, and we couldn't believe if it was true or not, right? And throughout all of this, here we have been articulating ourselves, promoting ourselves in this logical way, right? And that's the problem. Unless we start to adapt to the world of what it is today, we're going to become fossils to the greatness of what we were. And that's because the world we live in today is not logical at all. And I'm not saying that as an inherently negative. I'm saying that we live in a very emotional and storied world where folks are making decisions with their heart and their emotions first, and then finding a way to logically back it up, right? And here's the thing. Anyone who's married or partnered will tell you this. You cannot win an emotional argument with a logical one. Ask me how I know. See how the guys are shaking their head like, yep, right? And so if we now live in an emotional world, right, we ourselves have to change how we promote and make our argument for why we matter and why we exist, right? We're going to find a new argument that meets our work where the world is today, that sits between logic and emotion, but in our values, and particularly our community's values, and more importantly, our fundamental vitality. Now, if I were to ask you as an individual, talk to me about your vitality, if you came back and just simply told me how much you made a year, I'd look at you pretty strange. And it says we understand vitality is more than just our economic commerce, right? It's your spirit, it's your soul, it's your sense of belonging, the sense of altruism, the where you feel like you are in the world, the universe, or the beliefs you believe in. Our communities are no different, and every community has its own semblance of vitality. We wrote it up, what we call our Community Vitality Wheel. Now, hopefully many of you have seen the famous speech almost 20 years ago from Mara Gass about it begins with a visit, the life cycle of destination promotion. We took a stab at what we feel is where it begins with the management and the stewardship of a brand. But firmly in the middle of that is a destination organization who inspires that visit, that brings people and citizens and residents to choose to live there, that inspires businesses to put work there, and culminates with all of that with an investment, with families, with businesses, and all of it working interoperably. Now, this is a wheel, and if any of you motorcycle riders out there, I also acknowledge this is a throttle, right? And our job as destination organizations is one, our hand is always on the throttle. And our job is to look at our community and its vitality and get a sense, you know what? We need to rev up how many people work here. We rev it up. Or maybe we're in a situation where we have too many visitors or a failure of destination management. Then we find a way to rev down. But most importantly, we are at the center of it. And again, our hand is never off that throttle. So that's what we wanted to do with this research approach, was actually how to prove that the community vitality is not only true, but that we are solely responsible for both accelerating it and continuing that momentum in our communities. Now, we've long known the benefactors of the traditional tourism space. Those are our suppliers, right? Those hoteliers, those restaurateurs, the attractions. They know how well they do from us. But think about all the other industries that benefit from the work that we do, that benefit from a positive brand, right? One of the biggest winners of 2020 was real estate agents, right? What do they do when they come and try to sell you a new home? They no longer say it's 2 bedrooms and a bath. They say this is a great community to be in. That is our work at play. Think about it. The greatest currency in the world right now, it is not gold, it is not gas, it is not oil, it is not Taylor Swift tickets, although I would take any one of those if you got it. It is the currency of talent acquisition. We are all competing at the world stage for attention to bring talent to our communities, right? So it's time we actually start to highlight the work we do and how it influences that. And that's why we're here today to talk about this report. This report was built on the foundations of destination organizations, but we don't want it to live solely for just them. We want this message to be shared with your hospitality leaders, those who create quality of life, your policy and elected officials. But the most important one is your number one customer is your residents of your community. So that's why today I'm happy to announce today is Catalyst Day. This is a direct link to this study. If you're at home watching us remotely, I believe that you'll be able to go on our website right now and see it. But understand, even though we are acknowledging today as Catalyst Day, the work starts today. You will see us at Destination International leverage these tremendous insights over the next coming years to not just across our industry events, but elected officials, leverage our relationships across the world to make sure everyone understands that we are necessary, essential, and very important. So to get into the actual findings themselves, I'm pleased to hand it off to my colleague, Zeke Coleman, for Tourism Economics. So Zeke, floors are yours, buddy.
Thanks, Andreas. That was excellent, and it's an absolute privilege to be here. I'm going to jump straight in and try not to waste time. I know data after lunch is tough. So this wheel that Andreas showed, it really visualized the catalytic impacts of our industry. And in a way, you could say it's a theory. What this study represents and the data in this study shows that it's more than a theory. It's reality. There are actual points that you can take in and stories that you can produce throughout the community to make that case. Now, how many C students do I have in here? And I don't mean that you made all C's, but I just mean like you identify as a C student. Okay, we're shy. You all are A students. Cool. Leroy, you got me. Marcus. Okay, we good. For my C students in the room, and this is how I explain to my kids what we do, this is like Monopoly. So every Monopoly board has a certain amount of cash in circulation. We're all kind of wheeling and dealing, trying to get more of it. But there's only a set amount. And the only way to increase the amount of cash in your board, you see a Monopoly tournament, is if you said to someone else, hey, come over here, get to our board, go around our board, spend money, pay us, and our, basically, amount of money increases. If they like it and decide to stay, our community gets the bag. This permanently adds to our board. We can draw businesses in, and it offsets taxes, and it's good. This is kind of what we do. This is what our industry does, and the catalytic impacts of that action are significant. So that's my analogy for my kids, my fellow C students, all you smarty pants out there, you don't need that. Here's what this study found. Is that basically what we know, like Andreas said, there's broad economic benefits, enhanced quality of life, cultural and community contributions, support for government services from the work that you do, economic development, employment growth, and even increased budgets yielded increased returns to the bottom line. So we'll look at that first one. Now, all these images that I have were generated through ChatGPT, so shout out ChatGPT for I just put in some words and it said, yeah, this is what we got. This picture looks at the direct impact of destination promotion. Now, you guys are familiar with economics, right? And what we measure. Basically, the dollar, how that flows throughout a community. So in this picture, you've got a visitor and they give $1 to the hotel. That's direct impact. When the hotel gives that $1 to the local grocer, that's indirect impact. And when the hotel's employee takes the $1 from the hotel and spends it at the cable, to pay for cable or insurance, that's induced. We're going to look at all that, but this is direct. So we're answering the question in this case of how does an increase in funding, when you guys get T-bids, how does that impact room demand and revenue growth? And the results are, after funding increases, room demand increased significantly. Now, you can actually, if you've downloaded this study, this is data from 2003 to 2019. It's significant. You can dive in. There's more tidbits on that. When you look at revenue growth, it's even more pronounced, 1.1% increase in revenue growth. This is 10 destinations over a long period of time, a lot of data. On the whole, it's a pretty significant jump. Now, what about ROI and awareness? This comes from the work at Longwoods. In general, awareness was 52% to 62% for most destinations, over half of the destinations. So significant jump. You can see that there in the middle. And in some cases as high as 62, 72, 82. So pretty big jump there. And then in terms of ROI, destinations see a positive ROI with no one receiving less than $10. And in some cases on the far right of that chart, $85, over $110. So I give you $1, DMO, or destination organization, and you're going to give me back as much as, in some cases, $110 for my dollar. That's a huge story for you to be able to go out and say that on average is this case, and then you can do your own study to see what would it be for our particular destination. And then the tax ROI, too, is significant. It's always, on average, positive, with as much as $5 to $7, and even in 7 of those cases, over $7. So again, we're giving you, as much as 110 in some cases, and no less than a positive tax ROI. This is, we'll dig into it more, but this is supporting a lot of the services that you bring in. But as Andreas said, there's more than that. You guys already knew that first point. What about the impact on connected industries? Again, local grocer in this case. So I love this chart. It's pretty simple. On the left, that red circle is around $1 million in direct visitor spending. So that's visitor comes in, gives it to your hotel, restaurant, attraction. That is $1 million. What the right is saying, if you add all those numbers up, including the ones I circled, that's $600,000 in induced and indirect impact. So basically, every time you bring in $1 million into the community, that's another $600,000 flowing throughout the non-tourism parts of your community. That's huge. That's a big number for you to be able to champion out that on average you guys are affecting. Now, when you look at culture and quality of life, that was an interesting image. I had a couple, and I was like, well, why did it make this? This is fascinating. So if you can't read this in the back, the question is, and the ones that I've circled are touching on the cultural impacts and then the impacts on quality of life. So the first question is, do you agree, are you neutral, or do you disagree with tourism supports the preservation of local culture and protects the community's authenticity? Over half of the respondents in the communities that we asked this to agreed, 54%, and almost half agreed with, I have more recreational opportunities or places to go, things to do because of tourism in this area. Now I'm going to show you just two quotes from this. The first, touching on the cultural part, this is for Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce. They said, and this is not a DMO, this is the actual community stakeholders, promoting indigenous businesses is a part of us recognizing the unique nature of their culture and respecting it. And then speaking of quality of life, in town of Queen Creek, they said a very unique opportunity here is knowing your farmer and being able to partake in these healthy food programs right here. Basically saying, I wouldn't have this if it wasn't for tourism bringing this in. Now, part 4, few more quotes, but one chart that I think is fascinating, and I'll shout out to Kishan of Grand Rapids and Jordan's team. Really good insights here. So, first, the two things I circled. So this is what you're looking at is the halo effect. Longwoods did a great job. Shout out Cassie for doing this, analyzing a host of destination studies and halo effect studies that they've done. And what they found was when someone sees your advertising and they visit, this is the lift in this activity in this chart. So if they saw your ads and then they come, this is what you do. 31% thought it was a good place to live. 30% thought a good place to start a business. Now, in Grand Rapids, and I may get this wrong, but you guys have like 15 universities. Okay, that's correct. When she told me that, I thought, oh, wow. Well, then this first one, a good place to attend college, if they attend the university, they're actually likely to join their workforce, they're likely to stay. That is a big part of their community. Well, tourism, if you can get them to look at your ad and visit, they're likely to 31% lift in thinking it's a good place to attend college. So that's a big part of economic, stimulus, and a great example of the catalytic impacts of the work that we do. Now, we have data to show all this, but there's quotes that I think are pretty powerful in kind of communicating this message. So this is President and CEO of Thrive Regional Partnership says, it helps us that people throughout the region feel they are part of the Chattanooga tourism story. So you guys saw the previous session, excellent content. What we're doing is we're telling the story, we're giving people something to be proud of, something to champion, and here someone in the community is saying, yeah, that's true in Chattanooga with Chattanooga tourism. Experienced Champaign Urbana is very skilled at bringing us all together, and then they say to think of the destination as a whole, not just different disparate parts. This is out of the Ottawa Board of Trade. Ottawa Tourism has done a brilliant job in building that brand and then creating a stewardship plan that reflects all sectors of the business community in both of those elements. A few more quotes out of town of Queen Creek again. It's not, speaking of Visit Mesa's brand, it's not competing with neighboring communities. Instead, it joins forces with them. So you think about this, right? Mesa, if you ever talk to Mark, you should. He's focused on creating a brand that businesses in the community can then leverage, and your public services, your city, everyone has that brand. You have a cohesive message, and they're saying they're not pitting us against them. They're saying, hey, take the Visit Mesa brand, take what we say about City Limitless and apply it to the whole region. And they're saying, yeah, we feel like that it's big for us. Benjamin Siegel, the Lee County Visitor and Convention Bureau has done an exceptionally creative job with a brand that we are able to easily incorporate. So again, that sort of message. Part 5, the impact on workforce. I just have a couple of quotes here. There's more data in the report, I believe on page 40, that you should definitely check out. And there's, for all of this, there's actually an extended version of the report that shows a map or several maps of like sort of before and after, or it's kind of like, if you didn't have tourism, this is what you would see in terms of amenities, and because you have tourism, this is what you see, which is really helpful stuff. But here's some of the quotes. Charles Wood of Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce says, talent attraction is one of those areas where brand message is really impactful. And then out of the University of Illinois Research Park, talent is attracted to Champaign because of their knowledge of community values. Experience Champaign-Urbana ensures that those are at the forefront of this message. Part 6, benefits on government and community services. I really like this one. It may be a little hard for you to see in the back, but the darker green bubble is the average. The lighter green circle or bubble is the actual number for each destination. This is tax generation for every $1 million of visitor spending. Very similar to that other chart where I said 1 million leads to 600,000 of additional impacts throughout the community, non-tourism impacts. This is tax dollars. So on average, for every $1 million of spending, you can see 191,000 in total tax revenues. If you jump to just the local and state taxes, that is, for every million, 120,000 local and state tax revenues. Again, this is taking a number of destinations, averaging them out over a number of years and saying, this is what we see on average. It's positive. It's really good. Obviously, this varies from destination to destination, but on the whole, very, very positive. This is from Houston Airport. They said, it's really about Houston first making commitments to the airlines and showing as the destination organization what they're able to offer to make that partnership successful. They view that the tax impacts and the work that's done by Houston First is significant in helping them recruit those airlines and show that, hey, we're all together and we're all going to make this work for you. And then lastly, kind of pulling it all together, the impacts on economic development. I really like this chart. It's really interesting. So if you were to take over the course of 5 years in the data that we collected and look at the workforce, so basically the dark blue line is visitor-related employment. That's your hotel staff, your restaurant staff, your attraction staff, the event staff that support conventions. As that's increased, let's say over the course of 5 years, in year 5, when it's increased 10%, the employment outside of tourism has increased 3%. And so what you could say is, okay, as we have need of having more workers to support the work that we do in the industry, we have to have more workers to support those workers. You're going to need more people that provide banking services, insurance, any number of services throughout the community because of tourism. So you guys support that, and the work we do is important.